Sinclair joins us. He's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder at Teraflow.ai. No stranger to the world of innovation, the world of technology, to the world of cloud computing. Brett, it's so good to see you. You're wearing a fantastic shirt. Why are you copying me in my fashion sense? It's not supposed to be like this.
But Aki, in all reality, you did send the WhatsApp out that said, please, can we wear the same top?
Polka dots, exactly. So, Brett, it's been a very interesting time. I mean, you look at the explosion in cloud. Every organization I'm talking to is just talking about this rapid acceleration in innovation since the lockdown started. Why is making AI work so incredibly important for business in a post-COVID world? Because everyone is talking about that, big data, analytics, AI, and it's really the differentiator that's going to separate the businesses that will succeed and won't succeed, right?
I totally agree with you. We're in this new economy, is the way to look at it. We need to run our margins differently. We need to work differently. We need to scale differently. These tools that we used to in the world of cloud, new modern software as a service platforms, we should all be parfait with that, because the world we're heading to is how do we best do more with the same amount of resources we have? And that really is a scaling issue. So in order to do that, it really boils down to two little letters: artificial intelligence, AI. And as you say, it's all linked: cloud, data. You try to put it all together, it's quite difficult to do. But you can see the exponential effect, the differentiator between these big tech companies on the S&P 500 that are just killing it is because they deeply entrench AI into their business model and into their tools. Why are the rest of the business not taking advantage of this wonderful technology, but take advantage of it in the right way?
I mean, Brett, you raised some very interesting points about that. And I guess the one daunting task many businesses have got is that there's so much data. You know, how do you choose what data that you want to use properly, making sense of it? And of course, you've got to have the right machine learning in place. So it's great to talk about these things, about AI and machine learning and that sort of thing. But you know, what's the best way that organizations can use this to add value to their businesses? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do, is add value and, you know, make yourself more competitive. So how do you go about it?
Yeah, it's definitely not value-added tax. It's adding that value. Aki, you've actually nailed it. I mean, do you have a PhD in machine learning at all? Because you've nailed the core problem, which is we have too much data. And you know, if you've been in the world of IT forever, everyone's been trying to solve this problem of this ever-expanding exponential data set. And exponential means it's doubling, but we're getting to the stage where it's just so vast that trying to deal with it in the traditional way, which is running batch jobs from different applications, putting it into a big warehouse, and then trying to process it. And then you actually spend probably most of your business time looking at the core system and the data sets there and the data warehouse and any other data systems, trying to figure out, well, which data is actually the truth? Because there's so many discrepancies in time and not enough processing power, so there are gaps in tying up the data. So what's really important is about trying to create this real-time ingestion. So you're continuously pulling the right data from the right applications in real time into these big data, call them warehouses, but they're actually big data environments, and then visualizing that data correctly with the right set of business requirements. So you've really got to understand what you want to get out of this data. It's no longer an Excel spreadsheet saying, well, I can now see what my cash flow looks like. Or if you're in a bank, JAWS is particularly important in the world of banking, but it's a moment in time. Now you get to see it in real time across all your existing platforms. It's been the holy grail for so long,
No, I agree.
but it's here now, and that's just cloud.
But I mean, Brett, you know, at the same time, so many of these AI projects fail, right? I mean, what causes the failure to happen? Companies embark on the journey you've been talking about, but yet they see failure. What are they doing wrong?
You have one team that's trying to figure out this data problem. Then you have another team, is the cool, sexy team, that goes into the world of academia and hires a bunch of data scientists. That is probably the best example I've seen. Most of them usually take poor old analysts and BI people and say, well, you're now our data scientist, and you need to run a bunch of models on site. We'll give you some data, and please solve these problems, and let us know in a year's time how you're doing. And vast sums of money is invested. And we're talking hundreds of millions of rands are being invested into these spaces. And the end result is, well, it's taken us 2 years and we barely have any kind of uptick in the actual business. And the reason why it's happening is you're not linking the world of business into this world of data science. And in the world of data science, you're always looking for something called underfitting and overfitting. And your job is to line it up correctly, which is taking the right algorithm that's coming from the data scientists and taking the right data sets that's coming from the data engineers and pulling that world together. And what we're seeing in the market is people are starting to realize now, after a lot of money spent, going, it takes us 6 months to conceptualize a model and to take it to production. In the world of Silicon Valley, there's conceptualizing and taking it to production in weeks, if not days. So you can get it into the market, retrain it, see the effect, understand where you're underfitting or overfitting, and see real value. At the moment, large enterprises throwing a lot of money at a problem saying some bright sparks will solve it for me, when actually it's as important as going digital. 3-4 years ago, everyone's like, digital transformation, we've got to transform our business. We need to be a digital business. You need to be an AI business now. If you talk to the likes of Facebook, you talk to the likes of Uber, their primary focus is AI. There's too much data. There's too much data to do it with human beings. There's too much data to do it with programmers. You need artificial intelligence, and it's not easy.
Brett, you touched on so many interesting issues there, and you look at businesses today, and everyone is, there's got to be synchronicity in where your game plan is with AI, and you look at ML as well, for example. So where should businesses be using these technologies to see the huge returns? I would imagine, and many of the businesses that I've been talking to, it's all about customer experience at the end, right? That's the end result. So where should these businesses be looking at getting those massive results?
So it's the combination of customer experience and scale. And if you really dig into that, how do you scale customer experience? Well, the first area that's exploding is around, and I shudder to say it, sorry, chatbots.
Oh, no.
I know, chatbots, it's really arbitrary, but it isn't actually arbitrary.
You get the chatbot right, and you've got a winning formula. The customer experience just goes like this, right?
Correct. You scale your engagement with your customer. You provide and you can articulate the quality of engagement with that customer to be the best it possibly can be. And as you get the text part right, you're actually building up something called natural language processing, which is getting the dictionary right, getting the language structure right of your business and how you sell and how you support, that you now can start converting this into a voice conversation, which is incredibly complicated because it goes all over the show, voice. Ask my wife. It's very complicated. She talks about a million things all at once. And even as a call center agent, it's very difficult to manage. And that is your engagement. That's where you're currently engaging at the moment, is at a call center or in branch. Now, this can be done at scale on chat. So you've got a journey you've got to take. So that's the one area. But plugged into that world is we expose as business our processes to our customer. Think about your application onboarding at a mobile operator or a bank. Mm-hmm. There's still paperwork. There's still a bunch of processes that are manual, that are managed by a back office that is the mundane, doing it again and again and again. Unfortunately, those are the jobs at risk, because you'll use an automation platform that is event-driven, but there's so much moving parts that you actually need machine learning to figure out the most optimized paths, to understand where the areas have gone wrong and how to fix those areas. So it's that engagement with the customer on chat and NLP and voice is where the future lies, and your back-end systems need to scale around automating those processes, and tying the two together is a very well architectured or engineered data environment to support that amount of activity that's happening there.
So, one of your buzzwords, and you come up with a lot of buzzwords that I learn from you, is conversational UI. Now, what on earth is conversational UI? And you're saying that conversational UI is the future for business, right?
Correct. If you look at large business, I like using the example of a bank, whether it's internal or external, the way you engage is going to change. And I love the example of picture, I don't know if you've ever used the Apple EarPods or the Google Pixel 2s. There you can talk to these devices and you're firing instructions. It could be your Google Home, your Alexa, you're firing voice instructions. But picture business like that in 2-3 years' time. I have a problem with my laptop. Please, can you sort it out? And that gets essentially all the processes automated and suddenly someone's there replacing your laptop. I would like to get my latest revenue figures compounded over a particular period of time, cross-referenced to blah, 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 blah. That conversation initiates, as an executive, a bunch of back-end processes that were usually triggered by email to a team of people who triggered further emails, who then got other people working, who then consolidated multitude of data sets to pull a report together that took maybe 2 months. Now, the combination of all of that kind of happens. To structure that right, you need to design the experience. And that experience is a new UI, is user interface. So it's a new interface. It's no longer like we got our heads around how to use a mouse, our left click, right click. We now need to understand how do we talk to our environments, whether it's chat, whether it's through a voice communication. That conversational UI becomes incredibly important. And there's been huge leaps in progress have been made, especially even on understanding. The latest NLU, so that's natural language understanding engine, so it's trying to understand voice, can now recognize and understand a human voice at around about an 86 to 88% accuracy.
Wow.
The human ear on average is around about 85%. My ear, when listening to my wife, is about 48%. So it just shows you how remarkable this technology is.
Yeah. Well, I wonder where you're going to be sleeping this weekend, because if she watches this interview, it's not going to be at home, I can tell you that. But Brett, I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you look at the economy is in a mess. People are saying that, well, you know, the moment we start applying all these technologies, there will be impact to jobs. And we can't afford more job losses. So, I mean, what happens to those people who technology is going to be replaced? I mean, we as human beings have got to reinvent ourselves, we know, but there will be job losses, and that's a concern.
Correct. There's actually 3 key prongs to this concern. The first one is there are going to be job losses. And as an economy, what we have to do is we have to be bolstering our education. The good thing is we can use this type of technology to help scale the content and help scale the right content to the right people to get it out there quickly. And I've seen a fascinating initiative by Google where they're doing a 6-month equivalent degree where you can actually get a job with Google if you pass it. So they're trying to accelerate this knowledge gap. And I know lots of people are doing a really good job there. So the first step is we have to refactor our workforce. In every single major technology shift, there has been a threat of jobs, but along with that threat came a better economy. So the second one is our economy is going to change. If we do not embrace this technology and use it to compete at a global footprint or in a global stage, we are going to struggle to compete manually. You look at the big war between China and US, it's a really important battle that's happening between who's got the biggest capability in the world of AI and data, because it's that fundamental to our economies. So we need to make the investment in skills. By the way, all my team are from all over Africa, from all over South Africa. And the talent pool that we have, and that's in the most complex stuff from data engineering and applied mathematics, is coming out of this country. We have the skill. We just need to reprioritize that skill. The third part is, as we embrace this as an economy, it makes us more competitive. It is actually generating more jobs. And what we need to see AI as is an augmented state. I don't think for the next 20, 30 years, we're going to see AI getting to general intelligence, which is mimicking us and really being an equal to us, if not more. What that means is we're going to be using AI to better enhance our jobs, to better enhance our capabilities as humans, to make ourselves fitter, to eat better. And we need to start embracing that. So this legacy attitude of change is not good and I'm a Luddite has to change. We have no choice. And I think we're at this interesting reset in our own economies, where it's not just a financial reset that we need to be thinking about or a political reset. It is a reset towards the attitude of technology and how we embrace it and how we go into this world of constant learning. You know, you and I have been beating that drum, right?
Yeah.
Come on, guys, you have to do it. I think COVID has taught a lot of people that there is no more an alternative. You need to embrace this and we will thrive. But you're right, there will be some impact, but there's the opportunity to change.
Well, there's no turning back. This is the world that we're living in right now, and it's just going to accelerate. And, COVID has kind of fast-tracked all of these things and made us really acutely aware of, taking that digital transformational journey and a lot quicker, because you've just got to be competitive. But, cloud runs through your blood, and you and I often have these cloud conversations. But cloud for AI, and I want to touch on AI and ML because I think it's very important to talk about it because everything is now moving to the cloud. And in particular, when it comes to AI and ML, is the cloud the safest way to do these things? You're hearing of security breaches, you're hearing of all sorts of other problems, but is it safe up there?
So the quickest answer is yes, it is safe, and it's safer than it's ever been. The world that we live in is that we're under it's a new form of attack on both our financial systems, on our work systems. These attacks are coming in by the tens of thousands. And the more that we aren't prepared, and the traditional landscape of protecting your environment is to create an inescapable box. Unfortunately, in this new modern world, it means that in that inescapable box is a limited amount of compute, a limited amount of storage, and a huge amount of resources to support this very staid environment that is not really progressing because you've got to make a 5-year investment in this. So the security is actually what's been constraining innovation. If you want to take advantage of the world of AI and ML, yeah, you can do some models on your machine, you can run it on site. But when you're running it at scale and being able to crunch the data as quickly as you can and get an end result as quickly as you can, you need hyperscalers to be able to do this. The hyperscalers have created this incredibly secure environment that's, your data is encrypted in transit, at rest. I mean, I actually don't know where the data isn't encrypted, and you create all these additional security layers, plus you have thousands of people protecting your environments. It is far safer to be there than when you have 2 or 3 people looking after your entire environment, when you've got thousands and thousands of people who are trying to protect these environments that host billions of users. If you don't, you are going to be constrained. And I'd love to say, you can find this hybrid world. Yeah, there's a hybrid world between the two, fine. I think there's more of a hybrid world between the different hyperscalers, because there's no such thing as each cloud provider is the same. They're all very different, and you want to use them for the right application of what you're trying to solve. So I think we're going to see more hybrid play across the hyperscalers. And what we will see is a hybrid play towards edge. So what that means is if there is any local footprints, is to get closer to the end user so that you can service them quicker through the deployment of models, through the deployment and caching of content. That's going to be really interesting. So I think there's still a big play for data centers, but data centers that bring the service closer to your end user. So this edge computing is very exciting. The ability to deploy models closer is very exciting, but centralizing the crunch into this massive amount of power. So instead of waiting 4 or 5 weeks to get your models trained, they're being trained in seconds.
Want to
capitalize on both.
And it's safe. That's the big thing, that it's safe out there. Now, Brett, we've been talking a lot about AI in this particular interview, and really it is critical. And as we mentioned earlier, this digital transformation, a rapid digital transformation that has taken place in literally the last 4 months, where people had projects that were, scheduled to take place over 18 months, have all been fast-tracked. What's the world going to look like with AI running through the veins? I mean, AI is the critical component here of whether you make or break, but how are we going to see this going into the future when you have revenues that are essentially powered by AI and businesses have got that running through every bit of their DNA?
Yeah. So I think there's a concern and there's an interesting utopia. And I'll start with the utopia. The utopia for me is very interesting, is that we live in a more frictionless world. And I think that's fascinating. So in everything that we're doing, there'll be a refinement on the number of steps. Before, we always had to do a manual step to a manual step to a manual step, and it was about organizing those steps like an army, right? That hierarchical corporate structure, have people managing all these different steps and putting in the manual checks. I think that's going to go, because we're going to see this hyper-efficient, frictionless world where wherever there's a step or wherever there's a click to be removed, it will be removed. So you'll get this fabulous experience. And I think from an end user point of view, it would be amazing. I mean, just imagine a world where you could say, I just want to transfer some money to you now, Aki, because you've been fabulous. Can I give you $100 for a beer, kind of thing? Oh wait, the transaction's happened. It's been authenticated through my voice. It's landed in your account. You've got your notification on your watch, and you're very happy. So this beautiful utopia of life gets easier. We don't have to stand in home affairs queues waiting to get our IDs. That will never, ever, ever happen. Those days will go. But there's a slightly darker side, which is, and I really find it interesting, this world that we're going through at the moment, these polarized dynamics between left and right at a global level, and all these interesting challenges that we have as humans around our ethics. I actually think it's quite important that we're dealing with that now, because the world of data and the human world is going to just be replicated at a massive volume when it comes to AI. So if we don't get to understand the ethics and how we treat each other and better understand each other, that's going to have a knock-on effect of how AI will be interpreting our world. So let's deal with that. Let's make sure that the ethics behind AI is managing what humans want to be and should be. Let's eradicate this very polarized world. Let's deal with the problems in the world and push for this utopia. Because if we don't, AI will accentuate it. That's the worrying part.
Brett StClair, absolutely fascinating talking to you, listening to your insights. Thank you very much. Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Teraflow.ai. Brett StClair, thank you for your time.
Aki, thank you. Always a pleasure.